Hello.
Good, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session, Financing the Future of Restoration, Business Perspectives on Access to Finance for Startups. My name is Lisa Spelker. I'm a youth engagement consulting working for UNCCD's G20 Global Land Initiative. It's a privilege to be moderating today's session alongside my co-moderator, Milena.
Hi, everyone. My name is Milena Niehaus. I work at the International Trade Center, the UN agency for small and medium sized businesses. And it's a pleasure to be here together on this panel today. Back to you.
Thank you, Milena, for joining me in this session. So, land restoration is one of the most critical tools we have to combat climate change, to ensure food security, and to preserve biodiversity. I think you probably have heard this quite a lot in the last few days on this stage. However, achieving large scale land restoration does not only depend on innovative ideas or the successful and passionate entrepreneurs that we have here, but it also depends on access to funding. And this remains a significant challenge for many startups in the sector. A good illustration of this is the fact that land restoration alone has an estimated yearly funding gap of $278 billion. And I would like to emphasize the word yearly here. But our panelists joining us here today also have another hurdle to overcome in their business journey. This hurdle is the fact that the youth often has significantly greater challenges in accessing funding than their senior counterparts. So today we'll dive into the realities of restoration and entrepreneurship we'll explore how startups are tackling financial barriers, attract investment, and create real-world impact in a very ever-evolving ecosystem. We are very fortunate to have a panel of stellar entrepreneurs and leaders with us today in the field of land restoration. And they will be sharing with us their insights, their experiences, and also their strategies for finding success in this vital space. So now we'll leave the stage to Paula Patrino Villela, who is the Program Management Officer at UNCCD's G20 Global Land Initiative. She will give us some insights on the importance of young entrepreneurs in the field of land restoration. The floor is yours, Paula.
Thank you. I see the stage is crowded today, so I'm just gonna stay here. Wait, maybe I'll just steal your place, Felicitas, and then we can. Voila. So, good morning, everyone. Okay, seems good. Let's try that one more time because I feel the energy needs to flow a little bit more. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, that's much better. As Felicitas mentioned, thank you for the introduction. My name is Paula, and I work at the G20 Global Land Initiative, where I lead the youth engagement efforts. Now, between 2015 and 2019, 100 million hectares of land were degraded. This is a huge challenge we are experiencing as in the world today. At the G20 Global Land Initiative, we have the mission to restore 50% of degraded land by 2040. Now, how are we going to do it? We try to tackle it and talk to different stakeholders. So we talk to the governments, we talk to policymakers, other UN agencies, large NGOs, but also the private sector, large corporations. But we also try to engage with the youth, school children, and young ecopreneurs which are starting their entrepreneurship journeys. Now, countries are pledging to restore billions of hectares of land in international fora such as this one. But how are they going to do it? The public sector in itself is not going to be able to do such amount of work. They need the private sector as well. We are in a mission at the G20 to support these youth and young entrepreneurs who see land as a land of opportunities. A new generation that cares about the land, that cares about nature, that cares about biodiversity, but they also want to make a living and they want to support their families and their communities. We joined forces with the International Trade Center to create a comprehensive support program of young entrepreneurs. It's called the Youth Ecopreneur Program, the YECO program. And through this program, we try to support them in different ways. giving them master classes, capacity building, access to conferences such as this one, but also funding. Today, we will hear from some of them, as you can see, actually, a lot of them here at the stage. And we will specifically talk about the access to finance, which is one of the challenges that they're encountering. I don't want to take more of the spotlight because I think we will hear a lot of their insights, which is the important part of the event today. But I do want to leave one simple message to the audience, and that is that entrepreneurship is not just about innovation, but also about responsibility. We shall cultivate a future where prosperity and nature can thrive together. So, with that note, I'll pass it over to our moderators to continue the event.
Thank you very much, Paula. Indeed, very good words. And entrepreneurship is really an opportunity and a responsibility as such. But with entrepreneurship, also quite a lot of needs are coming in. And that's what we're also discussing today. Access to finance is one of the most entry barriers and also barriers to scale your businesses. So before we dive in, I really want to introduce you to our amazing panelists here. They are all involved in our Youth Ecopreneur program Paula already mentioned in one way or the other. So instead of just introducing them one by one, we were thinking also to share a little bit of a fun fact with them. So I'm going to go starting with Paul here. Paul is the CEO of the Six Tech Hub based in Cameroon, and he has supported startups in over 25 countries, African countries, and also traveled in 25 countries within the African continent. Welcome.
So on the other side of the panel is sitting Kemo Fati, the CEO of Green Up Gambia. His business started as a tree planting project and is now leading environmental change, not only with tree planting, but also with forest protection. It has also evolved in a social enterprise, managing the largest landfill seat in Gambia. Welcome, Kemo.
Now, next to Paul is Lilan from Sri Lanka. He's the CEO of Elzan Agro, an agri-tech company, and he transforms actually challenges into opportunities. So despite several power cuts in his own country, he formulated a new business strategy and focused on connecting actually the farmers, smallholder farmers in his country. So by now he has connected over 50,000 farmers with each other. Welcome.
Next up, we are joined by Manuel Olmos Muneva, who is the co-founder of the ecosystem Carbon Conservation. They offer B2B customized nature-based solutions to protect and restore peatlands in Colombia. Before Manuel even knew what a peatland was, he found himself knee-deep in one during a university field trip. So talk about a muddy introduction to his future career.
Thank you for sharing that fact. Now, next to Lilan is Tondosa. She's the founder of Sustainable Farming Solutions. Maybe you heard already this morning about her in the previous panel. She's from Malawi and working on forest agriculture. Her fun fact was she got inspired by pursuing a career in land restoration when she started to plant trees with her grandfather on their farmland. And actually, at that time, it was the only place where trees were actually present in the radius of 100 acres.
Moving on, Julia Menza is joining us from Argentina. She is the CEO of Nunatech Biotech, which provides nature-based solutions for restoring soil health by designing plant-organism associations. I hope I got that correctly. So Julia comes from a business perspective or background, and she met her science co-founder through a program that can be quite well described as the Tinder between business entrepreneurs and scientists.
I found this so interesting. I've never heard about a Tinder for businesses. Really cool. So, and last but not least, we have Chimka in the middle. She's the co-founder of Nomads Agritech Innovation, and she has developed mobile apps like Finny and Acroly. She will later tell us a little bit more. She comes from Mongolia, and which is one of the biggest countries in land size in the world, but it only has 3 million inhabitants. So imagine she works with farmers. If you have that much land, they're quite isolated, and that's where her business comes in. Now, I think you all got to know our amazing panelists here today. And we thought about how can we actually get involved in the first little exercise. So we prepared a little activity and a game. We are passing by little I have never post-its. And we're going to ask the panelists a couple of questions related to access to finance. So they all have a card either saying I have or I have not. So it's very simple. They need to showcase their answer after our question. So maybe we start with a simple question just to test if all of you have understood the principle. My question or statement basically is never have I been in Saudi Arabia. So let's see if you have understood it. Yes. No? You have. So where are we? Okay, perfect. All right, so now we got the game. Let's start with a question on actually funding challenges. So my first statement is that never have I ever faced a situation where lack of funding almost halted a project. So let's give them a few seconds to think and then raise your cards. All right, we have I have, I have, I have. Over there, more I have never. Okay. So I think the right side of the panel is actually happy. They have not faced serious financial challenges in the past. But Tondosa, you said you have. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about what situation was this and how did you overcome that situation and moved on?
So I come from Malawi, and I think based on what Milena just said, I came into the land restoration business because I was so passionate about it. But guess what? Passion doesn't fund businesses. So just 3 months after starting my enterprise, I ended up running out of all my savings and all my money. And then I had now nothing else to operate on. So guess what? I ended up organizing my team then, which was only 3 people. Shocker. And we organized the community to do a 10-kilometer conservation walk. Sorry, excuse me. And we ended up finding out that the Speaker of Parliament of Malawi was going to join us on our walk, and that's how we found 3 more months of runway.
Super interesting fact, and I think very out of the box thinking of how to overcome like some of the financial challenges.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing the story, Tontosa. So for the next never have I ever question, I have for you, never have I ever faced a major rejection when seeking funding and found a way to turn it around. Okay, everyone has decided. I see a few that actually have experienced this before. So, Manuel, why don't we start with you?
Hello, how are you all? Well, this is actually currently a funny story, but back then was more like a shock news that we had. That we had is that actually we were seeking some national funds from a national institution for reduced disaster risk in Colombia, and we were very confident about all our plan, our schedule, and the money we need. And we were really confident. But when they say no, they reject us, and we were really shocked. And well, but why did they say no to us? And it's actually a funny story that the prerequisites of this is that on paper they will say this project is for people that are under 30, and we were with the number 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, and we were almost all under 30, but one person was actually 30 years old, and that was like the main thing that like stopped us for having that. And we were very shocked. We were, oh my god, what is that? So we were shocked, but actually we learn our lesson, be more carefully in all these type of things. And actually after that we enter into another grant, and we actually win it. So be very careful with this, be very careful with the small letter of all of this. This might be like something very basic, but Many times we have forgot the really basic things when we are like trying to make some huge impact with our projects.
Thank you, Manuel, for sharing these insights with our audience. So, Tontosa, I saw that you also hold the I have sign up. Would you like to share what you did differently to succeed after the initial rejection?
As you know, as entrepreneurs, we're very patient about the sort of funding especially those that are aligned with your vision and those that really be the best propellants for you to move forward. So we had applied to this family foundation, and we got rejection and outright no. But I knew I wanted the video outside, and so lucky enough we had started positioning ourselves to educate people because I believe we were backed by kind of enterprise that they needed to fund. So we repositioned ourselves, and guess what? I met them again in New York and said, "One of the finalists of the Yale program." And when I met them, I went back with them. I showed them what we do, and I told them they're going to Panelists. And guess what they did?
Congrats for this. Big applause, I think. Thank you for this mentioning. We're moving on to the next question or statement on creative funding attempts. So, our statement is never have I ever used an unconventional or out of the box method to secure funding. Let's see. A lot of I have never. Maybe you also get inspired by this conference. Chimka, what's on you? I've never. Tondosa? Undecided. Okay, but we have Lillian and Paul on I have. So, what was actually the method and how did it work? We are curious. Lillian, over to you.
Well, my method was actually a pretty crazy one, I would say. Not applicable for like every startup, but if you believe that you have a really good team with like very diverse skill set, and if they're like predominantly specialized in one area, which in my case was software development. So in the very early stage, we kind of a way had to pivot a bit because we initiated during the worst economic and social crisis in Sri Lanka, which happened in the 2021-2022. So like we had attention from a lot of investors, foreign investors as well, but they were a bit reluctant to invest on us because of the ongoing economic crisis. So what we did was like we initiated with software development, and our co-founders went through like freelancing mode. So the thing was, we got like few big projects, and like they raised more than 200,000 US dollars, and they brought that money as a capital to the entity. So it was actually like kind of a way pivoting, but our heart was in the agriculture sector. So we had to develop our own devices. So we didn't have money, but we did what we can, software development, and raised the money and brought the capital in.
Awesome. Very creative to leverage different income streams to actually scale your own business. Paul, you also mentioned you have some out of the box ideas or methods you have used. You are one of those who are on the stage. You're an entrepreneur by yourself, but you're also a business support organization. So you support other entrepreneurs to actually scale or start up your business. Over to you.
Okay, so we had access to the matching fund, and one of our startups called Vital Life how to unlock that matching fund. They didn't have angel investors. So what we had to do was to rally round to say, we have this startup that we have access to 30,000 USD. So all we need to raise was just 10,000. So if you could give us 10,000, we could give this startup a runway of 30,000. So we could just now, okay, we need the money in the bank just to prove that we have access to 30,000. So given access to that startup matching fund, I think that was good. Also rallying and also telling the story of the impact of the startup, that we just need just 10,000 and be able to match it up to 30,000. I think that was very important in the line span of the startup.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to also more out of the box ideas. Maybe also the audience later on has some additional insights on how we could actually crack the challenges on access to finance.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing those two very interesting approaches. So, for our next statement that I would like everyone to think about, we have never have I ever worked closely with a partner or organization that made a significant impact on accessing finance. Okay, I'm glad to see that almost everyone has received that external support before. So maybe we would like to start with Chimka this time, and you could tell us a bit about who that partner is and how exactly they supported you.
Hi, everyone. I work with small farming businesses. I help them to access green financing. So I basically now working with a lot of banks and sustainable financing associations. So I used to work in my country, like there's something called like Sustainable Finance Association in my country. So I worked with them. And then I worked like with them for over a year, and then over like during that time I started making connections with the fintechs and also banks, and then like I've kind of figured out like how I can help banks to like connect with those farmers and businesses, and how we can just connect them and help farmers to access financing. So after that we started working with the State Bank of Mongolia. This is like a state-owned bank, and then we started processing the green financing, and then we helped like over 300 farmers to access the green financing opportunities. And then more banks and fintechs are coming to us, like they want to disperse their green financing opportunities to rural farmers and farming businesses, and also SMEs in agri-food sector. So this is the organization that really helped me to access the financing opportunities for my clients. Yeah.
Amazing story. Thank you so much, Chimka. So I also saw that, Manuel, you held up your I have sign. So maybe you also want to share what kind of support you exactly received.
Well, actually, yeah. After the failed attempt with the national institution, we learned from our lesson, and we tried again now with an international platform. Well, this maybe can work for you. It's a platform called Global Landscape Forum that is partnered with the FTSE4, and they are like linking funds with interesting people that have projects in strategic ecosystem. In my case, are peatlands, but maybe you have a dry forest or some interesting ecosystems. But in my so we try it, we go, and actually we win this grant. Is not a grant from 5,000 euros, and that actually like make us create our project, one of our significant projects, flag projects, that is called Peatlands for the Future, and we're actually making impact in a community called the Cerritos in Santander in Colombia, and we are actually recovering the water cycle function of the peatlands, so they can actually have access to this precious water resource. So maybe Global Landscape Forum, you can have it and write it down. Maybe it can be a good idea so you can start funding your projects.
Thank you very much for the tip, Manuel. And with this, we're actually moving to our last questions on the statements before we move to our panel discussion. So this one is about visionary finance thinking. And the statement is, never had I ever had to rethink my entire financial strategy to ensure the long-term sustainability of a project or business. So let's see. I have. All right. So everyone actually I have except one person. So maybe Kimo, you really was initially up. Do you want to share your story behind this?
Yes, thank you very much. I think for a long time we've been always implementing shorter cycle grants with grants from embassies or other UN agencies, and most of the time you have to always do something specific. You cannot even do anything with those funds besides what is entailed in the project. And sometimes when things change, you don't know how to utilize those funds, it goes back. So I realized that the team was always getting spread. After every project, we conclude the best people will always leave the project until you have another project again. So I see my organization falling apart until, we had to decide that we need to actually leverage on other avenues to be able to get funding, so that the 8% that we get from these other short cycle grants can be added to our revenue streams to give us some kind of a robust, functionality when it comes to our business. So we created biochar. Even as a social enterprise, the idea was we are running away from profit. But it doesn't mean that when the profit is going to somebody's pocket, then you can be afraid of it. But when it's getting back into your operations, then this way, you have some level of comfort in the going concern of your projects. So we invented revenue streams like biochar as briquettes. And also, since we have doctorate degree holders who are within the organization, we also recently developed a consultancy department to be able to help even the National Environment Agency. And the fact that we are, also known as an environmental conservation organization, this gives us access to some of the requests for, how do they call it, expression of interest in various government agencies that we can also leverage some other fundings to be able to continue our operations.
Thank you. I think also your statement really shows the need of adaptability and resilience all of you actually need to have to work in this environment where it's always very tough to get access to finance. Julia, as you haven't spoken yet, and you also said I have, maybe can you share very shortly your story?
So Nunatag, when we started, even when we received our first investment, pre-seed investment, we were a remediation company. So we were remediating contaminated soils by fuels. But what I actually realized that the venture capital market about financing different startups and also talking with different oil and gas companies, I realized that there was not enough business problem huge enough, or the size of the problem was not huge enough in terms to build a scalable business. So we pivot at the beginning, 3 months after we receive our first investment, and we, with the same technology, with the same experience, we decided to go through agriculture because it's a bigger and a huge market. So yeah, I mean, the purpose of the company changed because we wanted to build a bigger business.
Thank you. And once again, a very good statement or a good story about how necessary it is to really be adaptable to the market when you realize, okay, this doesn't work, let's do it differently, right? So thank you so much for this round of I Have Never Have I Ever. And now it's time to transition to actually our panel discussion on the different challenges, opportunities, and also lessons learned in regards to finance. And again, instead of going the very normal flow, usually in a panel discussion, one question after the other, we were thinking of using a wheel. Due to technical challenges, we're going to do it old school. And we created in our CAP Save Land the different subject questions we had. So I'm going to ask the entrepreneurs to actually draw one question. It's basically the subject of our next 5 to 10 minutes discussion. And we're gonna give one person the start floor, but you feel free to directly respond to them. You don't need to wait for us. Let's do it as a very informal and natural conversation. So let's see. Maybe Chimka, do you want to start? And can you read out what you see here?
Role of ecosystem.
All right, the role of ecosystem. Felicitas?
So for the role of ecosystem, very important and vital topic, right, to discuss. So our question for you would be, what roles should be different ecosystem actors play, such as governments, BSOs, investors, communities, etc., in creating a cohesive and supportive funding environment for ecopreneurs like yourself? So, Kemo, why don't you start and kind of kickstart the discussion for everyone? What is your opinion? Maybe also given your region and actors in your region.
Yeah, coming from the Gambia, I think what the key players, first of all, is the state. Sometimes, we have very many funding mechanisms, even at local levels. There has been complaint that there is not enough resources being mobilized at the national level. But the government level, we do have what we call the National Forest Fund. And this, of course, should go to all players acting on ecosystems, but it is not enabling for civil societies or local businesses to access. So the National Forest Fund only goes into funding the Department of Forestry. And when other international funding mechanisms come, such as the GCF or the Green Climate Fund, they have accreditation agencies and it goes straight to the government as well. And we, the civil societies or other businesses, have to plug into that same thing. So it's like, it's a bit centralized. So I think, what we are asking for is some sort of an enhanced democratization of funding that reaches entities that it wasn't previously reaching before. And how can they play this? It's like by having, some sort of a support organization. Like in our case, we were always unlocking $20,000 grant, $30,000 grant. But when we had some partnerships with an organization called Civic, now we are moving to $100,000 to $250,000 grants to be able to propel even things like regenerative seawater agriculture. So this is because those people were able to come and give us the backing so that we can be able to access that level of grant, because sometimes they will ask you even for your audited accounts. And I'm like, we have been running 20,000, 30,000, and we cannot provide audited accounts because we have to pay an audit to be able to come and do this. So we cannot really provide the necessities to be able to access this grant. So I think there should be some level of flexibility, even at the international level, as to how civil societies and other businesses play into these multilateral fundings that come to the government agencies.
For the ecosystem to really function, we need more stakeholder engagement, right? Mostly in terms of policy formation, because there's a lot of gap in terms of data, in terms of how we interpret policies, and how the other stakeholders, the civil society, the private sector, how they interpret policies also. At the level of the private sector, I would also say that the private sector is looking for incentives, right? Incentives in terms of policy incentives, fiscal incentives for them to actively get involved, right? And looking at the ecosystem, it's still very nascent in terms of VC investment. So we have to think about other innovative financing mechanisms through either concessional loans, soft debts, and things like that, right? Or convertible debts for because it's a long-term business. We're looking at a 10-year period, right? And VCs are not really prone to things they don't really understand. So I'd say lots of education has to go in terms of supporting specialized angel investor networks in order for them to understand the industry and also invest in it. We also want to see lots of specialization within the ecosystem. And I think we're trying to do a lot of things together. So we can have organizations focused on the very early stage, right? Given between 5,000 to 50 USD grants. We could also have organizations, for example, the Global Center for Adaptation, that is giving over 100,000 USD. So I think we need some level of specialization where we have investment also across the value chain. And we need these stories to be told. As we've spotlighted the fintechs, we've spotlighted the health techs, we also need to spotlight from the mainstream media what startups around land restoration and clean tech are doing, because from there we have lots of buying and lots of entrepreneurs and investors who love to know what is happening within the ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Those are really fantastic points both of you made about the role of ecosystem players. And also from you, Paul, because you are a BSO representative, so you are part of the ecosystem. So I think we can move on to the next category. So maybe someone want to pick from the hat.
Solutions to break funding barriers.
Okay, so this is also a very vital topic to discuss. I'm happy you picked it. So the question is, what structural changes or innovations in the funding landscape are needed to remove barriers and create equitable access to finance for ecopreneurs? Jimka is already raising her hand. Please go ahead.
I think continuing what Paul said, I think the main question is like, are we with the private sector? I think it's the most important question. So, in my experience, in my first mobile application, I worked with IBM company. The reason IBM company backed up our startup for the first product was because we were using their technology. So the main incentive was like we were solving some like rural farmers like problems using their technology. So they were much more interested in getting involved with us, like investing in like social entrepreneurs. Like otherwise, it's very hard to persuade them. Like if they want to invest in us, I think just a lot of governments and international organizations, they're with us, they're trying to invest in us, but like I think the main problem is like all those big corporations with a lot of powerhouse, like are they with us? I think it's like Manuel and we were discussing about it earlier, like we have to make them feel like they're needed, they're necessary to be with us, so that we can push forward much more big progress towards like building the ecosystem together. But the second one is like maybe like we are on YECO program. We want more programs like YECO program in all national level, so that maybe using big data and AI, there should be some like decision making platform that helps us like based on our business model, maybe that match us with the pool of small scale or like big scale investors, depending on like how much money and what area we want to do. Because it's very hard to find investment in land initiatives, like very niche sector, for example. So I think it's like very systematic innovations and just changes we need today, like mostly from private sector. That's how I feel.
Yeah, Tondosa, go ahead.
I want to point out a very critical factor here. In the land restoration ecosystem, it's very, very hard to find the value, the intrinsic value of ecosystems, of the land we work on. For instance, there are long-term investment issues that come with, say, planting trees, that come with developing a service that builds back better for the planet. So what does this mean? It means that we really need to look at policy regulations, different private and public partnerships that work towards, say, for instance, getting access to carbon finance. Let's look at, say, national focal points. How can we de-risk our private sector, for instance, our small scale entrepreneurs, our farmers, to get access to that finance so that they can build better for the planet. And this comes back to like understanding the role that both our governments, financial sectors, because think about it this way, banks, for instance, where I come from in Malawi, they have this huge credit, they have access to money. That's a spoken thing. That's everybody knows this. Banks have money, but that interest rate comes with a very big risk for a long-term investment project that is looking directly towards building back better for even much bigger sectors. But we can't calculate the value of, say, air, carbon. And how then do we make sure that our enterprises get access to that carbon or biodiversity finance that makes sure that we actually build back better for our land and planet?
And just to add to that, if in the financial sector in Gambia, for instance, if you get to the bank and you want to restore land, you put forward a proposal, that's a 50-50 chance. They consider that as casino gambling. So those proposals are likely to be chosen for you to be able to get access to that finance. The risk manager will butcher your proposal and tell you that, well, this is not something that we'll be able to invest in. But women have that small access to microfinance because they sell to the market. They are on a daily basis having that regular. So they have opportunities to those kind of financing. But there is some doubts when it comes to always land restoration for, private entities to put in their resources, especially considering the time it takes for you to start seeing returns. They are unwilling sometimes.
And when it comes to banking sector, like when you're trying to get loans, specifically when it comes to a tech sector, green tech or agri-tech, most of the time in global south countries, including Sri Lanka, doesn't have like a structured criteria to provide support and get bank loans. Not like developed countries, like because when it comes to innovations and all, like we need to like design, and then we had to pilot run. So banks are having a lot of troubles to like create a specific criteria to accept these kind of like innovations when it comes to tech, because bankers can't sometimes understand the technology works, how what kind of a time frame it will work. So that's one kind of a thing that I had personally had trouble to get bank loans and all at the very initial stage. So I think if banking sector can involve with some sort of blended finance with the other investors and the public sectors, that would be a really good solution, because it's a blended finance can be a very win-win situation. And also public sector can impose like green taxonomies. So it can also can create a like some sort of like a guarantee mechanism for the impact investors to like provide more funding to the startups in a confident way.
I think maybe what can be done can be, we can look at country level local funds, right? So we come up with policies that says 5% of the profit margin goes to the land restoration fund. So at the country level, we can start solving those issues before we come now at the more global level.
Impressive insights already on really practical solutions you came up with to overcome these different challenges. We have a couple of more subjects in our spin the wheel format. So, Paul, since you are sitting next to me, can you do me the honor?
Audience questions. So questions for you, from you. What do you want to ask?
Yes, now we have the option. Is anyone in the audience? Does anyone in the audience have a question? And we can take this on. Otherwise, we're gonna continue and draw another one. Yes, over there.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dennis. I have a very simple question. How many employees you have in your companies, and are you trying to sell products or projects?
All right.
Yeah, in my company at the early stage, we had like kind of like a voluntary employees, because we started our entity like right after our graduation, so we had a really good community. So we sign an MOUs with the relevant departments to get volunteers as our employees. So at the very early stage, we had more than 100 employees, but the thing was, we could not pay for them, but it was like considered as an internship for them from their departments, because early stage of our startup, we had like had to go through a lot of power cuts, so we had to like we had this strategy to reach the farmers as much as we can, and then we had to have a lot of employees. But now, since we have developed our systems and all, we have about like 24 paying employees, contracted employees. So when it comes to project, you ask project and the products, we are doing projects with the affiliates, and at the same time we have our own general products as well.
Thanks. Tandosa, quick one.
When we started, I think I did speak a little bit about this, that we had volunteers in our enterprise who we realized something, that if you heard me earlier on the innovation stage, that we employ the communities we work with. So we are literally making sure that the communities we work with benefit. So we start them off as volunteers, and then they graduate into interns, and then they get the full-time role for that particular project they are working with in that particular landscape. So it's basically employing through our own projects and services, but we are doing both projects and services, because we are offering services to farmers, but at the same time we are also offering we are also developing projects for businesses and other companies that want to offset their greenhouse gas emissions.
Thanks. Chimka, how many people work in your company at the moment?
Sorry. Yes. At the moment, we have 12 employees,
Thanks.
and of course, over 40 volunteers from the
Okay,
local
so
communities.
12 and 40 volunteers. Chimka, maybe in 2 sentences.
So
Very
we are
shortly
an
now.
IT company, basically. So there's 6 of us, and 3 of them are in IT people. And my major IT developers are women, all the way, like all of them. And we have like finance person and also like a standardization person, and then me, myself, and then six of us. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks. Julia.
So in our case at Nunatag, we have 4 employees. 3 are them are related to science and 1 related to business. And we are focusing develop scalable products, but also if it's required, we can develop particular projects in terms of restoration.
Well, in my case, we are actually doing project development and implementation of peatland techniques in conservation and restoration techniques. We have currently eight people in our team, 2 co-founders, and the rest are like more in the advisory team. And we are all in between project manager, environmental professionals, and social professionals, so we can have like a comprehensive approach of the different problems peatland have in Colombia.
So we have 7 employees in my social enterprise, but of course we also run other projects side by side, like for instance the Great Green Wall, where we have about 21 employees. But of course this is not paid from us, but also from donors and the partners that we leverage on. So you have a lot of parallel things going on at the same.
So thank you. Oh.
I have time. So we offer products, services, English, French, and now Arabic.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis, for this very interesting question that let us get to know our panelists a bit more. So next category, please.
Out-of-the-box solutions and stories.
Okay, so for this category, we have quite the intriguing question, I think, for you guys. How can unconventional approaches like innovative financing tools or cross-sector partnerships reshape the way land restoration initiatives are funded? I think, Leland, this question is right up your alley, so maybe you have an innovative idea that you came across to share.
Actually, our biggest innovative idea I already mentioned about it. Our co-founders are going freelance and do down projects and brought the capital to our entity. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe blended finance would be really appealing because it is that public sector investment and then finances and private sector investors can align with each other and create a really good blended solution for the startups. And as I mentioned as well, green taxonomies can be a really big change in the future if the public sector is considering it because taxation is usually not focusing too much on green related projects. So I think public sector can focus more on taxonomies that can, create more fund or the functional guarantee mechanism for the investors who are investing on startup like ours. That will be really empowering.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have an interesting idea they maybe experienced themselves or saw somewhere else they would like to share?
No
Okay.
problem. Then we continue with the next round. Tondosa.
This is great because you're talking about the future now. Apparently, the next question should be about the future of access to finance.
Okay, perfect. So, of course, here we need a forward thinking question for you. What long term transformations are needed in the global financing ecosystem to ensure sustainable and inclusive funding for land restoration projects? So, Tantosa, maybe you would like to start with this one?
Yes. I'll go back to saying that the ecosystem we're staying in, our land, our planet requires out of the box thinking, and this does not. It's not a one person problem. It's about our financial institutions. It's about our government. It's about the private sector. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, droughts, cyclones, any other climate shocks that are happening now are affecting everybody. So it becomes very, very important that in the future we make sure that everybody at every stage is involved not just one size fits all, because as we've heard from the panel, everybody comes from different geographical regions, everybody comes from different social situations, gender even, and even most importantly is the fact that we are solving critical problems that all come together for the better of our planet. So it's very, very important that we all are intentional about taking action now, advocating, raising awareness, and most of all, knocking on those doors that need to be knocked on, and making sure that we are doing the great work that everybody here is doing, getting the support, and pushing for more.
So how do I see the future? I see the future to be more collaborative. We need more collaboration. We need more commitment. We need to really, put our hearts where our mouths are in terms of really intentional investments. Right? We also need a more stringent policies looked at the various regional levels. Right? We need the regional players, for example, like the AU and the EU, to be more active in terms of meeting those commitments and holding the various member states to account. Right? We need also more transparency at the level of how finances is being unlocked. We also need more de-risking in the sense that we need appropriate finances for the various stages. Right? I think with that we will be able to see how we can pave the way for the future.
I think, Paul, just to add to that, when they talk about innovative financing, I remember during the COVID, I don't know what financing mechanism was used, but I think similar one should be used for land restoration if you have to get this fast. During COVID, money was able to reach the most remote places and in the fastest way possible. So perhaps maybe the World Bank and the IMF can help us with ways to kind of speed up, financing on, land restoration as the future goes. I think we should really adopt that model, because somehow we got resources very quickly, but anytime now we're going to this restoration, it goes in a very small way. There is always accreditation agencies needed. There is those hurdles. If they remove that, we can quickly restore land across very different geopolitical areas, I think.
I think, Julia, you want to say something?
I would like only to add that also right now, for example, venture capital investment, we are solving problems related to nature, and nature to recover takes time. So in terms of the time of the returns of the investment, I think that we also have to promote conversations about how long are they expecting to return of the investment. Because if we're not developing, all of us, we're not only developing, I don't know, solutions that in 1 or 2 years we are going to come back 10x the amount that we receive. So I think that in terms of land restoration, we have to also think in long-term investment and long-term returns.
Well, it's unfortunate to cut this very engaging discussion short, but we still have some more questions for you. But it's very inspiring to see all of your, or hear all of your visions for the future. So who would like to pick up the next question?
Actually, I did it for them because it's the last.
Okay.
So it's the key barriers to access to finance. So interestingly, we have covered all the other topics before. We spoke about solutions, out of the box thinkings, but also now to kind of like wrap up the panel, I think might be also good to emphasize again what are really the key challenges and barriers you face, especially as young entrepreneurs in a field which Julia you just mentioned, in land restoration, which has a very long-term vision, right? Also long-term objectives, and cannot have like a very short return. So let's go back to the basics. Does anyone want to start with this key barrier question? Julia, okay.
So in terms of key barriers, and maybe also related to the long term, so if we develop solutions for, or tailor-made solutions for particular ecosystems, maybe the normally, like when we are in a table with a VC, for example, what they expect is that your solution have to be scalable, that can be applied all over the world. So, but nature is not like that. I mean, some ecosystem need tailor-made solutions, and other places need another solutions. Maybe if you want to also include local communities, also you have to think in another type or even projects or even investments. So I think that there is a gap between the expectations between of the current investment funds and like more local and tailor-made projects. So I think that we also have to, as I mentioned before, in our case, we pivot because we identify a business opportunity bigger, but it's also sometimes sad because we can't accept right now, or maybe in the future when we are going to when we were like in the future, I think we will be huge companies, and but in that moment you can, I mean, select, okay, I am going to do this tailor-made project. But in terms of the expectations, I think that it's like quite tricky, this gap between tailor-made and scalable solutions for investors.
Thanks for your insight, also sharing what kind of conversations you have with VCs and investors. Lillian, you also wanted to say.
Uncommon barrier that I'm having in Sri Lanka, maybe other countries also might have it. So when we receive grants in Sri Lanka, even a big investment, right away bank freezes the account because they consider it as a revenue. So they have to go through the taxation process and everything. So it is super time consuming and bit difficult to convince them this is not a revenue, this is a grant or this is an investment, especially when it comes like foreign investments. So I've been having a bit of trouble with that. But eventually, after even grantors have to go through this process and provide the document, okay, this is the grant, then they will release the amount to the bank. So this, I don't know whether everyone is having such issue, but in Sri Lanka right after this economic crisis and all, they won't put tax as much as they want. So it's kind of like inconvenient, but at the same time there should be a structure, tax and all. But for these kind of things, they have to be flexible as well.
So even sometimes national legislations are really, yeah, hindering you to actually receive foreign investments. And even if you have received,
Yeah,
you
we
succeeded
I
in
mean, the
making
biggest
investments,
challenge is
right?
to get the grant, and when we have it, still we have to go through the
Another
process.
challenge. Yeah. So it's actually double barrier. First of all, getting the finance, and then actually receiving the finance. So point well taken.
Okay, so many challenges, right? The world is full of challenges, so that's why we love doing what we do. I think the first would be research labs for rapid prototyping and testing, right? For example, especially for what the entrepreneurs are doing, they need access to lots of technical assistance. And I think that is also not really readily available in the various sectors because lab distribution is really huge. I would say having also early access funding in terms of really rapid testing of their ideas. Also, we see high level of barrier to entry, especially when you're dealing with farmers. And now when we see the wave of data protection and privacy laws, right, we're having issues with how would these young entrepreneurs that need this data, how will they keep those data because we need to be compliant in terms of data privacy laws, making sure the farmers give their consent for their data to be used. So we're also seeing challenges in terms of that. I think infrastructure is a very big challenge. The cost of internet, when you're working with entrepreneurs, availability to opportunity, we see lots of entrepreneurs utilizing internet, SMS of things, right? Especially in very remote areas. So I think the challenges are there, even in terms of access to markets. I think that is one of the core challenges. So what we try to profess is seeing how there's investment across the value chain, right? If we have that, definitely help the entrepreneurs to release their businesses.
Thanks also for the systematic level overview, Paul. Tondosa, your hand was up before. Do you still wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. You know that there's so many solutions out there. right? And access to funding is very different for different scales of, and even different regions. For example, in Southern Africa, you would think that, oh, you know, all these access to technology, AI is there for everybody. But we know that we're dealing with millions of off-grid farmers who don't even have access to a phone. So think about it this way. How then do you de-risk these smallholder farmers? How then do you ripple that effect? Because the restoration opportunity, the land restoration opportunity is very, very huge for these small-scale farmers. And in fact, we can achieve that much faster if we know where exactly to target. So these are very specific issues for specific regions. And it's important to know that just because somebody wants this type of help, this person also needs a certain level of help. And it all starts with these partnerships we're talking about, the collaboration, and of course the access to people who know a certain aspect of the financing.
Thanks. Before I maybe summarize the discussion on all the rich points we have had, I want to give again the opportunity to the floor here and see if there are any questions. Yes, 1 second. Let me give you a mic. Oh, someone is coming.
Thank you. Maybe I share also a solution, as we say that it is a very intergenerational challenge, and to access to finance, it is not only to have the document. You have to demonstrate also that you have the belief on your document, on your ID. But as we propose, we are about a pavilion there. We must change education system over the world because we know our education. We know we learn as geography. For example, if I ask you, do you know what is the capital of New York or of our United States? You know New York. You know Washington. But if I ask people, what is the product that make United States bigger? What is the product that, for example, why China become bigger? Nobody can understand answer because our educational system is centered just on geography. But we talk about entrepreneurship. All kids must be today have entrepreneurship value. Anywhere in the small scale, they must be able to create a product because in this way we can create because you cannot go to church finance if you are not able to define which product you want to produce because finance is not given like this. Finance must be exchanged as you explained before. How did you do to justify that you are able to turn your the loan? Okay, in this way a new education must be implemented center in product and green entrepreneurship education. It is
Okay.
my
So,
our proposal.
creating or integrating entrepreneurship into the school curriculum, into the mainstreaming it into education. Did you have a specific questions to the panelists, or was it more of a comment?
No, I think that I have to add only that I was hearing that our comment here because we the question is how to ensure to help people to access to finance. I think it is not directly today. It is not. They must be prepared. But okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Julie, did you want to react? Do you look like no?
I just
Okay.
Yeah, I think those two, the conversations that have been over the years, you have commercialization of research, which is one. I think building business cases from lots of this research that is happening,
Is it
and
okay?
also one thing is capacity building, and making sure people have the right business and technical skills.
I think the lady in the back would also like to ask a question.
Hi, this is a really interesting panel. I have been listening to bits and pieces of it. But then my question is when we have finances for NGOs, basically in the developing countries, there is money, there is knowledge, but how does finances help in access to land or access to actual finances for women particularly in the developing countries? Or what kind of cultural, challenges do women face in access to land through finance? That's my question.
Thank you. Maybe, okay, Tondosa, you're already ready.
I really wanted to take that question. I'm not
Thank
going to
you.
talk about the statistics. And I want to acknowledge the fact that it's very, very true that even though women are natural land caregivers, they don't have the same access to a lot of resources, including money, for initiatives that they can control. And in the same instance, the statistics of women who are funded, even the investment funds we deal with, how many of them are women? How many of them are men? You look at those statistics and then you get to know that the less funded aspect of, say, land restoration are women owned or even women farmers in this industry. But yet, how can you expect to scale up restoration if half of that of the world population is held back? This is why it becomes important to what he said. I think he was talking about deconstructing the education narrative just from the local level. Instead, he talked about saying, we learn about the capital cities of the world, but what are the capital economies of the world? What is it that Malawi has that can scale their economy? So it's very critical for us to understand: are the women in this society the backbone of it? Are the young people the backbone of it? Are young ecopreneurs the backbone of it? So she's very right. How do we deconstruct that narrative? Thank you.
And and I would like to add also, in terms of maybe the challenges that we have in green solutions and so on, is also, if we ask for investment, we have to also provide up money. Like, we have to add value in our solutions, in the business that we are building. And sometimes we are lacking about creative ways to add value, for example, to, I don't know, ecosystem services, also, and so on. I think that we also have to keep building business strategies and business capabilities in all of our businesses, in terms to be at the same level of the conversation. Because if we are asking to money, also we have to keep building abilities from ourselves. That is really difficult sometimes, because I think that we all are here because of purpose, because we want to do positive impact. But at the same time, we have to maximize the business. And I think that women also in different places, we have to keep putting the business discussion in the center of the table.
Just one thing I would like to add is, to have the land in the name of the woman is also important for me. And also not just the lands, but also the houses in the name of the women are important, because even though culturally they have challenges to access land, on the paper it's in their name. That kind of empowers them, I feel.
I think just to add to that, one of the key things in the Gambia, a classical example would be Action Aid's effect. We have been into communities to kind of advocate about inequalities that exist. Because of women's social status, they cannot own land. So every time they will claim that they have access to land, but they don't have control over land. So at the end of the day, the women will put their vegetable garden out of the blue. They are just relocated somewhere else. So they keep moving from place to place. Sometimes they will take even their wrappers to create fences, temporary fences. So with Action Aid's new model, it's not just about, giving women access to land, but also control over land. So that would mean that FAO together with Action Aid are creating, at least 10-hectare gardens where they give women to actually manage and control this place, so that they are not victims of the same, patriarchal societies where, inheritance always goes down to the male people, and the female, they're just counting the numbers. If inheritance come, for instance, today, everything comes to Kemo. My sisters are just numbers that count, but they have no part of that. So this is changing. We are advocating for this at even policy level, at CADI courts, for women to be able to have this. Sometimes if the head of the family dies, the women end up facing abject poverty. When you take away a woman's financial ability, you subject her to abuse and exploitation. And this is actually, floating across everywhere on the continent.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Oh, one more, then a very quick one, and then we have to wrap up also, that everyone has time.
I want
for
to connect it, the last question I have asked. Very passionate young people here. you're all owning these businesses, are you also ready to sell your stakes, majority stakes in your companies when you get enough funding? When a VC investor or an angel investor, or if it is a crowdfunding, are you ready to give up your control or a majority of your company because you are running this business with passion?
I'm ready to give up control for the women farmers I save to them, and for anybody who is willing to make sure that the mission we are on, the intentionality towards giving them that power is there. Only and only then.
I am not willing to give up control. The future of businesses has to depend on the structure. Sometimes the ownership can be different from the governance. So I don't care who owns it, but the governance, we have to maintain that so that the vision that we envision, it will go according to that. Sometimes investors are there, they have resources, but they are mostly about the profit. So for businesses to thrive in this 21st century, you have to have purpose. It's not about maximum profit we can derive, but how many benefits can we bring in? For so long, we are with the mentality that, we have to always make profit. That doesn't work now for us now. We have to look at something much more deeper. So that means if you separate the governance from the ownership, you have peace of mind in how this works. And this is the way that, most social enterprises are now designed. We have a board of directors. You might have, someone who puts in his money, but he knows that, well, he will have no say in the operations. He just has to believe in the vision and buy it, and we will actually take him to the promised land. So these are some of the dynamics when it comes to...
Let's. No, sorry, but let's do. You're gonna get that, but let's do a gender balance. So Chimka, let's go first, and then
To
we
be
can
honest,
go to you.
I think, I don't know. I would not say that I'm going to give away my shares, because I think I have I have angel investor, and who said I want more than 30%. And I said, no, I cannot do that, because I think sometimes just people change, situation change. You got to be careful. What are you going to say? You're going to say, oh, okay, I'm going to give up on share, but it really situational, I think, because I think sometimes I work with the private sector a lot. So in that case, if I invite investor, I gotta be really careful what that person wants from that perspective, because in the long run, what we want to do, we want to make money, of course, so I think it just depends, I guess.
I just
So,
wanted to
Kemo,
say, just
let's go for Lillian first.
Thank you, very short. So the thing is, if I'm gonna give my shares, obviously in the early stage, I'm not gonna give more than 5% to anyone. I mean, it's like our co-founders agreement. But we are not looking only for money, actually. If you are gonna give any shares, they have to bring something else more than money too. So it might be the expertise, maybe the consumer base, so some sort of thing they need to give more than money. So that's the response that I think.
Okay,
yeah,
very
I just
quickly.
wanted to say, just as part of the ECO program, we were able to be in touch with lawyers who were even willing to help us in terms of, how to negotiate these business contracts. So this actually opened our eyes into the corporate world, and we have really strong people backing up, especially from Sydney, through this program. So we are really trying to be really conscious of what's about to come in the future.
Thanks. I think summarize. Yeah.
I want to retaliate what I said earlier, giving back that ownership. My purpose of business is to put money in the women I save in pocket. So I want to retaliate the shares. I want my business to make sure that it's owned by these women farmers that are restoring land, and I'm not going to change on that.
Thanks. I think all the answers have shown there is a combination possible, right? You can look for investors, make money, make profit, but also still have a profit. So it's also really about finding the right investors, have a matchmaking and a similar objective on both sides. Thank you so much, all of you on the panel. It was amazing. I would like to summarize quickly the discussions before we officially close. So it was a bit difficult to follow and do notes all the time, but we started with the question on ecosystem. And we actually summarized or said it's so important to invest in the ecosystem, to have also in country on a regional level a supporting network for all of you where you can actually get the support you need, especially in regards to finances. We spoke about angel networks, how they are super important, especially for the very early starts. We spoke about the importance of matchmaking, of being actually able to find the right investors for your case, and how we could actually really leverage technology for that, leveraging AI. There should be more programs to support young entrepreneurs, such as the YECO program, to really provide you with all the capacity you need. On the more structural situation, we spoke about the challenges with interest rates, in that the interest rates are super high, that there's way more need for more favorable situations, more favorable instruments to actually tap into the finances you need to scale up. And then we moved from the instruments actually to policies, on how actually the policies need to be favorable, how we need to have green policies which favor also investments in startups like yours, and really work on blended finance solutions, tax incentives, but also systematic change, right? Systematic change on the policy level, on the finance level, of making intentional investment, not only profit oriented, but that we have a long term investment strategy, especially for land restorations and sustainable solutions. And that we have to de risk, that de risking is necessary to really move the capital from maybe like very short term elements to something which is sustainable but has a long term impact. So with this, I really want to close this panel, and I want to give a big shout out to all of our ecopreneurs here on the panel. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, they are all part of the YECO program, which is run by the G20 Global Land Initiative together with with the International Trade Center, that's where I'm from, the UN Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. And we are also, it's an annual program, so it's a cohort each year, and we are soon opening the next applications. We're always looking for mentors and partners who can support the entrepreneurs. So if you're interested, scan the QR code and stay in touch also after the panel. Thank you so much.